Welcome back to Literature Guide. Today's video is about literary terms and their inventors. I have already produced a video on this topic. This is the updated version of the video published on this particular topic, literary terms and their inventors. In this video, I have included many literary terms and their founders or inventors so that you can get maximum information through this video. I have already produced many important and useful videos for you recently. You can make use of all those videos while studying English literature. Pen names of English writers, great English writers and their titles, and some videos on English poetry. It is only because of your support that this channel has managed to produce good and useful content for you. I hope the same support from you in future also. I don't want to waste your time. Let's dive into a video and enjoy the video.
Literary terms and their inventors. Theatre of Absurd, Martin Nestlin in his essay The Theatre of the Absurd in 1961. Affective Fallacy, W.K. Wimsatt and Monroe C. Beardsley their work Verbal Icon, in 1954. Affective Stylistics, Stanley Fish in his essay Literature in the Reader, Affective Stylistics in 1970. Ambiguity, Plurisignation, William Empson in Seven Types of Ambiguity in 1930. Anxiety of Influence, Harold Bloom in The Anxiety of Influence in 1973. American Renaissance, F. O. Matheson in his critical work American Renaissance in 1941. Angry Young Men, Leslie Paul in his autobiographical account Angry Young Man in 1951. Anti-Mask, Ant-Mask, Ben Jonson. The Great Awakening, 1735 to 1750, Jonathan Edwards. Arga Saga, Terence Blacker in Publishing News in 1992. Art for Art's Sake, Victor Cousin. Belatedness, Harold Bloom in The Anxiety of Influence in 1973. Black Mountain Poets, Donald Allen. Bathos, Alexander Pope in a mock critical treatise The Art of Sinking in Poetry in 1727. Beat, Herbert Hunk. Beat Generation, Jack Kerouac. Bildungsroman, Johann Carl Simon Morgenstern. The Blank Generation, used by American media for the novelists in 1980s. Carnivalization, Mikhail Bakhtin in Problem of Dostoevsky's Poetics in 1929 and Rabelais and His World in 1965. Cockney School, John Lockhart in Blackwood's Magazine in 1817. Cora, Julia Christopher. Conservative, John Wilson Crocker in the Quarterly Review in 1830. Contact Zone, Mary Louise Pratt. Cultural Materialism, Raymond Williams. Curtal Sonnet, Gerard Manley Hopkins in Preface to Poems in 1918. Cyberspace, Virtual Space, William Gibson. Decorum, Horace. Dadaism, Hugo Ball. Difference, Jacques Derrida in Of Grammatology. Deep Structure and Surface Structure, Noam Chomsky. Defamiliarization, Victor Shklovsky in his essay Art as Technique in 1917. Discours Histoire, Émile Benveniste in his essay Problème de linguistique générale in 1966. Dissociation of Sensibility, Thomas Stearns Eliot in The Metaphysical Poets, 1921. Physical Distance, Edward Bullocks. Dub Poetry, Linton Kwesi Johnson. Drab Clive Staples Lewis in his work English Literature in the 16th Century in 1954. Death of Instinct, Sigmund Freud. Dystopia, John Stuart Mill. Ecocriticism, William Rooker in 1978. Egotistical Sublime, John Keats in his letter to Richard Woodhouse on the 27th of October 1818. Euphuism, John Lilly in The Anatomy of Wit in 1578. English Utilitarianism, John Biddle. Ethnoscapes, Arjun R. Pardure. Elan Vital, Vital Impulse, Henry Bergson. Fanzines, by Russ Chauvenit, a great fan of science fiction in 1941. The Fantastic, Zvetan Todorov in his work Introduction à la littérature fantastique in 1970. Ficelle, Puppet Strings, Henry James. Foregrounding, Jan Mukarovsky. Four Ages of Poetry, Thomas Love Peacock. Flat and Round Character, Edward Morgan Forster in his work Aspects of the Novel in 1927. Folklore, the term introduced by William J. Toms in an article in the periodical Athenaeum in 1846. Fleshly School of Poetry, Robert Buchanan under a pseudonym Thomas Maitland in the Contemporary Review in 1846. Fabulation, by Robert E. Scholes in the Fabulators in 1967. Generative Grammar, Noam Chomsky in Syntactic Structures. Gestures, Bertolt Brecht. Golden, Clive Staples Lewis. Grand Style, Matthew Arnold in On Translating Homer. Grand Narratives, Jean-François Lyotard. Grundyism, Extreme Moral Rigidity, Thomas Morton. Gonzo Journalism, Hunter S. Thompson. Gothic, John Giorgio Vasari. The Gilded Age, Mark Twain and C. D. Warner. Hegemony, Antonio Gramsci. Heteroglossia, Mikhail Bakhtin. High Comedy, George Meredith in The Idea of Comedy. Horizon of Expectations, Hans Robert Josse. Illocutionary Act, John Langshaw Austin in How to Do Things with Words. Implicature, Herbert Paul Grice. Implied Author, Wayne Clayson Booth in The Rhetoric of Fiction in 1961. Implied Reader, Wolfgang Iser in The Implied Reader in 1974 and The Act of Reading. Imagined Communities, Benedict Anderson. Id, Ego, Superego and Libido, Sigmund Freud. Individuation, Carl Gustav Jung. Inscape and Instress, Gerard Manley Hopkins. Infrahistoria, Francis Gumer. Imagism, Hilda Doolittle and Ezra Pound. Intentional Fallacy, W. K. Wimsatt and Monroe C. Beardsley in Verbal Icon in 1954. Intertextuality, Julia Kristeva in her two essays The Bounded Text and Word Dialogue and Novel in 1966. Ideogrammic Method, Ezra Pound. Incremental Repetition, Francis Gumer in The Popular Ballad. Jabberwocky, Lewis Carroll. Jungle English, Dolichologia, Sir Alan Patrick Herbert. Transposition, Sigmund Freud in relation to intertextuality. Lake Poets or Lakers, Francis Jeffrey in the Edinburgh Review. League of Nations, G. L. Dickinson. Leitmotif, Leading Motif, Hans von Wolzogen. Literariness, Roman Jacobson. Literati, Robert Burton. Lost Generation, by Gertrude Stein for the writers during the First World War. Magic Realism, Franz Rowe. Maker, Poet, Sir Philip Sidney in his work Defense of Poetry. Malapropism, Richard Brinsley Sheridan in The Rivals. Melting Pot, Israel Zangwill. Relative Autonomy, Louis Althusser. Metalanguage, Roman Jacobson in Linguistics and Poetics. Metaphor and Metonymy, Roman Jacobson in his work, Two Aspects of Language and Two Types of Aphasic Disturbances. Metatheater, Lion Label. Modernismo, Ruben Dario. Marginalia, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Mirror Stage, Jacques Lacan. Muckrakers, Theodore Roosevelt borrowed from John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress in disparaging sense. The Movement, J. D. Scott in 1954. The Morality of the Slave, Friedrich Nietzsche. Negative Capability, John Keats in a Letter to George and Thomas Keats. Negritude, Aimé Césaire and L. S. Senghor. Nihilism, Ivan Turgenev in his work Fathers and Sons. New Woman, Maria Louise Romé. Newspeak, George Orwell. Nation Language, Kamau Braithwaite. Objective Correlative, Thomas Stearns Eliot in his essay Hamlet and His Problems in 1919. Orature, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Organic Form, Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Oedipus Complex, Sigmund Freud. Pathetic Fallacy, John Ruskin in his work Modern Painters in 1856. Poetic Justice, Thomas Rhymer in his work, The Tragedies of the Last Age Considered produced in 1678. The Problem Plays, Frederick S. Boas in his work Shakespeare and His Predecessors in relation to Shakespearean problem plays. Problem plays, Sidney Grundy used this term in relation to intellectual drama of the 90s in disparaging sense. Projectivism, Charles Olson. Prolet Cult, Alexander Bogdanov. Purple Patch, Horace in Ars Poetica. Pandemonium, John Milton. Panopticon, Jeremy Bentham. Pantisocracy, Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Robert Southey. Provincializing Europe, Dipesh Chakrabarty. Pantheist, John Willard Toland. Pylon Boys, Cyril Connolly. Robotics, Isaac Asimov in a series of stories published in Astounding Science Fiction in the 1940s. Satanic School, Robert Southey in his work, A Vision of Judgment in 1821. Stream of Consciousness, William James in his work, Principles of Psychology in 1890. Sublime, Longinus. Superrealism, Guillaume Apollinaire. Structure and Texture, John Crow Ransom. Sturm und Drang, Storm and Stress, Friedrich M. W. Klinger. Subaltern, Antonio Gramsci. Orphism or Orphic Cubism, Guillaume Apollinaire in 1912. Surrealism, Guillaume Apollinaire in 1917, though the movement began in 1924. Speculative Fiction, Robert A. Heinlein. Synesthesia, Perceiving Together, Jules Millett. Subjective Idealism, Johann G. Fichte. She Tragedies, Nicholas Rowe. Superman, Friedrich Nietzsche. Beachcomber, Bevan Lewis in 1919 in the Daily Express. Max Pornday, Roy Campbell in his Talking Bronco in 1946, which denotes names of four great poets of the Auden group, namely, Louis MacNeice, Stephen Spender, Y. Stanhuy Auden, and Cecil Day Lewis. Martian, James Fenton. Roman Fleuve, River Novel, Roman Roland. Simulacrum, Jean Baudrillard. Survival of the Fittest, Alfred Russel Wallace. Tabloid, Lord Northcliffe in the Daily Mirror. Fauvism, Louis Vauxelles. Tabula Rasa, John Locke. Futurism, Filippo Tommaso Marinetti. Tenor and Vehicle, Ivor Armstrong Richards. Tension, Alan Tate. 10-Year Test, Cyril Connolly. Cubism, Guillaume Apollinaire in 1911. Theatre of Catastrophe, Howard Barker. Theatre Laboratory, Jerzy Grotowski. Theatre Libre, André Leonard Antoine in 1887, Paris. Theatre of Cruelty, Antonin Artaud. Theatre of Oppressed, Augusto Boal. Theatre of Panic, Fernando Arrabal. Theatre of Silence, Theatre of the Unspoken, Jean-Jacques Bernard. Third Theatre, Odin Teatret, Eugenio Barber founded in 1964. Third Culture, Frank Raymond Lewis. Third Space, Edward Soja. Touchstone, Matthew Arnold in the Study of Poetry in 1880. Tropism, Natalie Sirote. Tumbling Verse, James VI, Scotland. Unanimism, Jules Roman. Utopia, Sir Thomas More in his work Utopia in 1516, it was originally written in Latin in 1516. Ut pictura pieces, as painting so is poetry, Horace. The Uncanny, Sigmund Freud. Utilitarianism, Jeremy Bentham. University Wits, George Saintsbury. Verismo, Giovanni Vega. Vorticism, a term coined by Ezra Pound. Well-made plays, Eugene Scribe. Welt literature, world literature, Johann Wolfgang Goethe. Wertherism, Johann Wolfgang Goethe. Womanism, Alice Walker in her novel Color Purple. Xanaduism, John Livingston Lowes.
How is the video? I hope you like the video. I will meet you soon with a new topic on English literature. I have already produced many videos on English drama, poetry and prose. But before I leave the camera, if you really like the content of this video, do like and subscribe Literature Guide so that this channel will produce good videos for you in future also. I will meet you soon with a new and fresh topic of English literature.
Please subscribe Literature Guide.